Hello everyone, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope you're all enjoying the holidays at the moment. 2020 is finally coming to a close, thank God. And I wanted to spend a bit of time putting together this list of what, in my eyes, are the top 10 movies that came out in 2020. 2020 has been a long year for all of us, and it's hard to remember what actually came out this year. I know there's some movies I looked at where I actually thought they came out last year, it felt that long ago. But in general, it just wasn't really that great a year for movies. There were some great TV shows released this year, but for movie-wise, there wasn't that many contenders, to be honest. As I know, a lot of the stuff we were looking forward to just kept on getting delayed, and now it's all coming out next year, or even 2022 at this rate. But nonetheless, this is just a personal list of my top 10 favourite movies, which I wanted to get out there and to let everyone know that these are movies that are worth watching. I'm almost certain your lists won't be the same as mine, and if they are, then we're exactly alike. And you probably have the same bad jokes that I do, so I'm sorry buddy, that's not good. A lot of these movies that I'm going to be talking about I have done previous reviews for, and I will be posting those links in the description below. But enough chit chat, let's get on with the list, shall we? Number 10 on my list is Wonder Woman 1984, directed by Patty Jenkins. This is actually the most recent of the movies I've seen that are on this list, and I feel that for all its faults and issues that it had with the storytelling, it still ticked a lot of the right boxes for me. Mind you, this movie may have impacted me more than normal, I guess, because we've just had such a limited selection of blockbuster movies this year, so I'm probably just picking the best one out of a limited bunch. But in my eyes, Gal Gadot has always crushed it as Wonder Woman, and she does the same in this movie as well. We get some great moments between Chris Pine's character and Wonder Woman, and I like the addition of Kristen Wiig as Cheetah as well. All of these components tied in together was enough to make this movie fun nonetheless. Number 9 is another action movie based off a comic book, and that is The Old Guard. This one in particular stood out to me because of the way it handled the topic of immortality, and watching these characters who are just completely and utterly fed up with humanity. It's got some good and clean action scenes in this movie, and whilst Charlize Theron's performance was a little bit monotone, we did get some great performances from Kiki Layne and Marwan Kenzani. It does feel like a smaller budget movie, but that doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. I did enjoy the story despite the hard sequel baiting that we got at the end of the movie, but hey, I'd be more than happy to watch another one, I guess. Number 8 on my list is The Devil All the Time. I actually didn't get round to making a review of this movie at the time I watched it, and I didn't just want to populate my top 10 list with action comic book movies. And out of all the dramas that I saw this year, this is probably one of the best ones I saw. It's directed by Antonio Campos and stars Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, Jason Clarke, Bill Skarsgård, Sebastian Stan, and loads of other actors. It's an intense drama about these sinister array of characters who all intertwine with Tom Holland's character in a town reeking with corruption and darkness. There's some really thrilling performances on here, and we get to see a lot of different acting angles from a lot of the cast on this list. It starts off really slow, but by the end of it I was completely hooked, and every scene had me pretty nervous to watch. You can find it on Netflix at the moment, and I'd recommend it if you're looking for something a bit more dark and serious. 7th on this list came out before I even started this review channel. Again, trying to keep this list varied, I can easily say that this was my favourite horror of the year, and that was The Invisible Man. Directed by Lee Winnell and more or less just starring Elizabeth Moss, who does an insane job of carrying this movie on her shoulders. The story follows this woman who's being chased and stalked by an abusive ex-boyfriend who was able to create an invisible suit, I guess. He stalks and chases her and also causes her to become quite paranoid and scared. And for once we get a character who just isn't an idiot. Most horror movies frustrate me as a lot of the main characters do these stupid things that no one in real life would ever do. It makes it hard to commit to these stories because we know that we can get out of these things hours ago by doing something that's not retarded. But Elizabeth Moss's character is great to watch in this film, and Elizabeth Moss herself gets to prove how absolutely brilliant she is as an actress. Number 6 swings us back into the action category with Chris Hemsworth showing us that he can be a great action star without needing a hammer or a cape. And that movie was Extraction. Directed by the renowned stunt coordinator Sam Hargraves, we get this simple story that's combined with this really well shot and choreographed action scenes. There's this amazing one-shot scene where I've watched it countless times on YouTube already. And the movie does pretty well not to drop the pace of the story throughout. It does have a pretty basic plot, but I can easily say it's a movie that's going to give you some really fun popcorn entertainment. It has some great repeat value for the action junkies out there like myself. It made for a great directorial debut for Sam Hargraves, and I'm looking forward to other projects he does in the future. Bottom of the top half of this list, also known as number 5, is Enola Holmes. A really interesting and fresh take on the Sherlock Holmes stories we've seen about 100 times already. We have Millie Bobby Brown starring as Sherlock Holmes' sister Enola in this decent paced, family friendly, funny mystery movie. Everyone in this movie is really entertaining to watch, the characters are all charming, and I'd definitely be happy to see more of these guys in the future. The fourth wall breaking is a bit jarring, but thankfully it wasn't enough to throw me off the film. Plus, Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes is a great choice. Next up, hitting number 4 on the list is Spencer Confidential, directed by one of my favourite directors, Peter Berg, who, once again as to no shock, brings in Mark Wahlberg as the lead actor, which we've seen him do a number of times now. Not that I'm complaining at all though, because Peter Berg seems to bring out the best acting performances from Mark Wahlberg when they're working on the same projects together. And the same is applied to Spencer Confidential. It's a funny, buddy-up cop investigation movie with this great chemistry between Mark Wahlberg and Winston Duke. Yes, it's not really Oscar performances that you see here, but it's simple and it's fun to watch. It's just a decent, well-rounded movie that is definitely something you should watch if you're just looking for some light-hearted entertainment. Number 3 on this list is a movie that did its best to both amaze me and confuse me in so many different ways, and that movie is Christopher Nolan's Tenet. I think it made for an insanely good time at the cinema watching this film, having been one of the most unique action films I've ever seen. The motion of going backwards and forwards in time at the same time did make it quite hard for me to get my head around it, and I had to watch it a couple of times in order for me to fully understand the scenarios that were going on. But watching Tenet a second time did iron out those confusions for me, whilst making for no less of an enjoyable film. It's a heavy thinker, but it's also really rewarding. Being both fun and intense, it's no shocker that this one's in the top 3 of my list for 2020. The penultimate movie on this list today is a film directed by one of my favourite writers in Hollywood, Aaron Sorkin, with this only being the second movie he's ever directed. And this movie is The Trial of the Chicago 7. God, this movie was so interesting for me. A biopic film showing the corruption of the justice system used for political gains, with some incredible performances from Eddie Redmayne, Sacha Baron Cohen, Jeremy Strong, Mark Rylance. The list is honestly huge. Such an amazing assortment of actors, brought together by effective storytelling and witty writing. I was hooked from beginning to end, learning about the events that took place in this scandal, and I cannot recommend this movie enough for people to watch on Netflix. If you want to learn more about the movies I'm talking about today, click in the links below to see my full reviews of these movies. That is, if you're tempted to watch them, of course. And number 1 on my list is a film that just barely technically scrapes in on 2020's top 10 movie list, only because it was released on the 1st of January in UK cinemas this year. A funny, crime-centric gangster movie whose director has left his mark in the same genre through Snatch and Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. And my favourite movie of 2020 is none other than Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman. This movie is just so great. I've watched this movie so many times already, and this just doesn't get stale for me. We get really funny and entertaining performances from an insane ensemble cast. Matthew McConaughey, Hugh Grant, Charlie Hunnam, Michelle Dockery, Colin Farrell, Henry Goldman, and Jeremy Strong again. Man, he's done great this year, hasn't he? Every person in this film is great. It's essentially about this American mob boss who's trying to sell his marijuana empire in the UK, but in doing so is met with numerous backstabbers, blackmailers, and robbers, all for making this really funny ensemble film. This movie's pretty easy to watch, and I'd 100% recommend it for people out there. Especially if you're a fan of Snatch, this is basically that but newer. So that's it for me here today. Let me know if you've seen any of the movies I've mentioned on this list, and let me know what your top 10 of 2020 is. Do you agree with my list or do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned for more reviews on movies, anime, and video games. Until next time guys, take care. Happy New Year.